Broad Street Review podcast is an extension of Broad Street Review, Philly's home for arts, culture, and conversation, an online arts and culture journal covering the greater Philadelphia area. I'm your host, Darnelle Radford.
Today on the podcast, Sabriaya Shipley, Theater Philadelphia's Executive Director, stops by to talk about Philly Theater Week, running April 4th through the 14th. Here is my interview with Sabriaya Shipley. And welcome to the podcast. I'm your host, Darnelle Radford, and today I am in the virtual studio with Theater Philadelphia's Executive Director, Sabriaya Shipley. Sabriaya, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Or welcome back, I should say.
Yeah.
So the last time we spoke in August, it was about a fringe production. And I said I would give you some time to get comfortable in this role before I would sit and have an actual chat with you.
Yeah.
So here we are. And we're in, I guess we're in the middle of Philly Theater Week as we are recording right now. So if you are listening and you did not get tickets, there is still time to get tickets for Philly Theater Week. So we will talk about that. But before we get into that, we'll do a little catch up. So tell me, was it everything you ever dreamed it would be?
That's the fucking way to phrase it. No. And I think also because I've never I'm a dreamer, but I'm also a kind of a balancer of really loving whatever is to come and embracing change and things like that. So yeah, when coming into it, I was like, there's some things that, I like and I would love to, change and really invent. But there's also some things I was like, hold up, this is something that, is not working for me right now. And so I think the balance has been, for me, really honestly, kind of taking the time to examine the table and was already at the table, what was being feasted on, and everyone's favorite dish, and then also being like, this wasn't healthy for you, and how can I like help to do this, but also what I brought to the table. And one of the things that I loved about stepping in was, I think a lot of people assume that I came in with very like new eyes to Philly theater, or a younger perspective of Philly theater. But my resume would be different of the different things, places I've been and done and have yet to explore. And so the last almost 9 months have been filled with birthing kind of myself in this kind of executive director role, and fostering the labor of Theater Philadelphia, especially in a period where there was a long transition time and people are wondering what's happening, what's going on. And so a lot of times when you're introducing people to new concepts of what community looks like for you and investment, you have to brace yourself for those uncomfortabilities. Yeah. Right. And for it not to be Disney World for you, right? And like I like to say, also Disney is not picture perfect. So yes. Before we get into it. So that's really, it hasn't been everything I dreamed of, but it has been an incredible period of transformation, an incredible period also of uncomfortability.
Yeah. It's taken me a while to get to this point, but I like kind of starting fresh in places. Yeah. Like there was this mindset before that you would stay in a job until retirement. You get your proverbial gold watch and your pension, and you just pat yourself on the back for sticking it out. But we are artists, we're creatives. And so we need that creativity. We need to be fueled, and we need a fire burning in us every day. And if it doesn't burn, we need to accept that this fire is going out, and we need to go find a new fire to light. And so I like walking into a space that already has an infrastructure, because I spend a lot of time understanding why things are done the way they are, and if there is room for improvement, for growth. Are there opportunities? And so, because 2 seasons ago, I joined Theater Exile, and I felt the same way. I was like, I need to understand everything you do and why you do it. And then at the same time, I'm going to say, is this the best way we can do this? Or, is there room for growth here? Like, what if we tweak this and that then we don't even have to worry about that thing. So yeah, it's an interesting thing, like, getting into something new and just kind of fresh eyes, you're learning, and then thinking about how you can incorporate your value into what they already have.
Yeah. I think that can be a hard thing to navigate if you're not humble enough to do it.
Yeah. So I was going to say, so what parts of you have you brought to the role of executive director?
Yeah, I think number one, I brought my kids along with me. I have a series and bunches of little ones all around Philadelphia, from West Philly to North Philly to South Philly, who I have kind of gathered over the years and done either education or work with. And, I've made promise to them that, wherever I go, I'm taking you with me. And so one of the things that was really important to me was also listening to the balance of that. We had theaters, wanting more youth to come and see the shows, but also to more engage and to tap into a new audience base. And so with that, we created, alongside some of my favorite teaching artists, Mia Rocchio, Cherie Salters, and Stephen Peterson, the Act 2 Next Generation podcast cohort. And so it's a cohort of 8 to 10 students, Black, Brown, LGBTQIA, who we go and see a show. We see a show every couple of months, and then we get together and we record their reflection on it, but also their journey as artists and what they are seeing as well, coming up into this Philly theater scene. It's been such a joy, because it's been an opportunity for vulnerability on my part and in their part, as far as like how we navigate new systems and new places and things. But also my kids are not like new to this, they're new to this. I told people a story with the time I took 9 young girls from 9 to 18 to see For Color Girls was on Broadway right before it closed. It was me and my mama and Peter Pan bus. And so my kids have been a lot of different places. That they've done a lot of things with me. So that's been a great program to start and to have, and to document. One of the things is also that I'm a very much respected ethnographer, and in my own right, a member of, like, admirer of the elders, right? And so their stories. And so one of the things I noticed that City of Philadelphia hasn't done a Radford Achievement Award in a bit, due to whatever kind of drama happens around that, and one of the major things I wanted to do was to do a ethnographic series called Living Legends, to kind of interview different sustainable figures in our Philly theater, ecosystem, such as Dr. Camille Williams Witherspoon for, poetry and ethnography, who taught me, Pat Adams at the Wilma for, really driving home the notion of community, as well as stage managing and technical importance, right? To theater, or Karen Smith, a recent Pew grantee who, like, literally can be found drumming in every community space around, and sitting down and having these conversations even Kathy Simpson, who is still acting, is still in these streets, like telling stories,
Yes.
And the cool part was to do that and to have their communities extended outside of theater also celebrate them. Because I think as artists, we go a long time doing job to job or things to things, and he had this huge resume. And I think it's important that we clap for each other in every aspect. So these women that I interviewed or sat down with, they're still kicking. They're still doing their thing. They doing their stuff. They book more book than I am.
Yes.
So it's very important for me to, see them doing that and to celebrate them, to clap. But I think it won't be something we stop. I think it's something that we want to continue doing each year as we're building to kind of like do it as the reference to really dive into who is living and breathing and contributing to this Philly theater scene in a way that is community centered, in a way that is sustainable for us. And that's been exciting.
Yeah.
But other than that, that's what I have been bringing to the table, as far as also like just funny reels that I post on Instagram. And,
yes, we're definitely following and getting our chuckles in.
Yeah. And I have to credit our fellows. We started a fellowship program called the Ubuntu Young Artist Fellowship that works with like 4 fellows, 3 of which are currently seeking or enrolled in undergraduate theater programs, and one that just recently graduated from a theater program in the Philly, kind of Greater Philly area. And they were brought on not only to kind of assist with Theater Week, but to be kind of advise us on what they see is happening in Philly theater, scene, but also to get the ins and outs of what it means to represent theaters and to interact with theaters and to go see shows and properly review them in the way that you want to. And they've been a great addition to our Theater Philadelphia team. Outside of, my right hand, CJ Higgins, Director of Operations.
Great. Well, it sounds like you got good people around you, which is always amazing. I love the idea of the podcast cohort and the Living Legends. When I saw that come out, I was like, okay, this is interesting, and what a great lineup that was too. Do you see a huge value in digital media in terms of like how to promote our community, moving so in the future? Because we've had these conversations over the years, and many organizations think it's too involved to do, but it's like necessary because everyone is not waiting for the Sunday paper to find out what is going on. Like we also want to know who's behind the scenes, like who works at this place, so you can't see that if you just go into the theater and it's ready for performance. You don't really know who's actually pulling the strings to make all of this work. So I think digital media also allows us to kind of be in the room where it happens.
And it's a part of our growth of ethnography. I think if you track the way in which we have documented communities and, work over the years, you can date it back to, how traffic's on the wall, to tell the latest story.
Yes.
You can date it back to oral tradition. You can also date it back to these papers and an excitement, being printed on the paper, yada. And being able to scrapbook and rip out. I know my mom is currently scrapbooks everything, every press thing that she's in the end. But also the digital media is just also supporting the curve of ethnography and accessibility that digital media allows, right? Because some people, it is not accessible to go grab a paper or to kind of like have those ways. Right now, most time Wi-Fi and internet is like a free access. You can carve your way out to it, but also, how do we show that we're removing in the times, but we're not forgetting where we came from. We're not saying I'm not gonna, I don't want to see Metro Philly, or I don't want to see anything. We're saying we want to also take the autonomy to represent ourselves for ourselves as well. because a lot of times that it becomes an issue in theater representation. We're waiting for these reviews, and while reviews feel good, like or having valid to let us know and to call to action a lot of things in our community, there's something about being able to also say, no, I have something to say, and this is how this is what I said clearly, right? And then, but you also have the notion of digital media also being altered and being this influencer culture, and so I think it's a toss up of how your ethics come into play with anything that you're doing. I simply do community ethnography, because ethnography is just studying people and, taking pictures and doing things and writing down all the information, collecting that. But for me, community ethnography means that my community is involved. They are at the center. They also are advised or are the editors or like sitting there and telling me, certain things they want to see. So I think it's really depends on where you're coming from at it, your intentions for it, and whether or not you are accountable for when your intentions do not match up to the impact.
I think it's interesting that we always talk about how this generation has a short attention span, right? But then in the community, we have whittled down every review to a sentence, and we simplify everything, and even marketing, like the press release is like whittled down to bullet points and these key talking points and so on. So, in about 9 days, I'll be celebrating 25 years as a podcast producer. And I just realized that now. I'm like 25. I'm not even 25. Like that. I could be wrong. It could be something, but it's like I'm thinking like. I always wanted to have a long form conversation because I thought there was so much more to say instead of saying like, because people tend to walk out of a theater going, oh, the lights were great. And I really like that one scene and those transitions and those moments, like there's nothing they can't, but what about the story? Like how they make you feel and all these things. And so I wanted to give people more information when they got into the theater. So let's talk about the process. Like, first of all, why is this even coming to stage? And then how did you bring people together? Like who shares your vision or who helped your vision evolve and so on? And like, where were the tough points? And when did you know you had it, And so what can we expect and what should we take away? And so on. What should we take away is always like a loaded sort of question. It's like, it's subjective, but I used to say that before, but then I started saying, what presents a sense of urgency for you right now? Because I actually took this from PTC's past artistic director, Sarah Goranczyk. She had done an interview for, I think, her Lifetime Achievement Award. And she said something to the effect of, we're always looking for what is calling us, what is screaming to be on stage right now, what has the most urgency. And I took that to heart and I was just like, why does this matter? Why? And it's not that things on stage don't matter. It's that there has to be an understanding of why you and your team believe this story, this conversation matters right now.
And we all talk about it and be able to own, like that to me is the best thing about it. I'm always down for a conversation.
Absolutely.
Everybody, we can be quick to cancel people and to be like, this is outrageous. And I'm like, they hadn't talked.
Yeah, absolutely.
And if you say that, hey, I reached out, I gave my feedback, I did what I had to do, I understand I'm being reserved from, that particular community because you're like, okay, I've done my work to, have this conversation to initiate it.
Yeah.
I think it becomes difficult, like you said, like when we have different urgencies, right?
Yeah.
We have different immediacies that no one is held to your immediacy. No one is held to your urgency, right? And so you can't expect people to be like, this play right now
Yeah.
is what we need. When they're like, oh, no, I'm on a different wavelength,
Mhm.
man. I'm like all over here. But the conversation can be had to say, okay, so if you're here and I'm here, why is that? And is it something we need to resolve, or can something just exist?
Yeah.
You know, at this current moment, as long as you are not, you know, persecuting a part of myself, or, you know, really attacking my identity
Mhm.
and my safety, then we have an issue.
Yeah.
Like, let's have that conversation.
Absolutely. I always say, you know, I'm fully engaged when I'm in the theater, and it took me a while, but I was a Barrymore nominator. What was it under the Alliance? It was a nominator, and then I was a voter under Theater Philadelphia. And through that process, it taught me to, like, okay, I really have to shut everything out. I have to focus on this moment right now. And so now I can go into the theater and not be in my head about what is going on outside the theater. And I think it's hard for a lot of people to do, or to realize, like, we're in a live moment here, you know? And so leave all that other stuff out the door. Let's pretend it doesn't matter right now, because right now we're just engaging in this conversation. And when you do that, that conversation evolves from this stage. I continue that conversation in the lobby, on the way out the door, walking home the next day. When I tell somebody what I saw, I'm like, my opinion on this production is still evolving, you know. And many of the interviews I've had over the years, the piece resonated with me in a way, or just prompted some questions. I wanted to know more, and that's how I ended up reaching out to them and saying, like, can we chat? Just tell me a little bit about this. Or, like, there was an element here that I thought, you know, its involvement in telling this story really spoke to me, so let's talk about this. And perhaps other people will find their unique way into this conversation as well, because it's not always just the front door. You know, I always say sometimes you can find an open window, and you know, you can come in that way, and your view is different, just like your view is different depending on where you're sitting in the theater. And so yeah. All right. So now let's talk about Philly Theater Week.
Yeah.
Because Philly Theater Week it's the seventh annual Philly Theater Week, which is great. And every year it's like it's a different amalgamation of things, you know. Either it's work that was already planned on stages, and it lines up with Philly Theater Week, or it's work that was created specifically for Theater Week, or just, you know, the plan was to present it here and then see where it goes. So what is the 7th annual Philly Theater Week shaping up to be?
Yeah. I think it's a very much a call to resources, to catharsis. We see a lot of, you know, devised theater, a lot of comedy, a lot of really like fundraisers, gatherings, showcases that are calling for more community-centered to focus, right? A lot of the plays are pressing up against issues that are prevalent in politics and society, and how we are navigating or you know, healing. And this year we really wanted, because of the, you know, the vastness of it, we wanted to kind of have different things that we added onto it to make it even more Philadelphia's more involvement in kind of the conversations. So we did like a podcast every day, posting with like deep conversation with different theater companies, addressing certain themes and topics that, you know, are sometimes are having controversial moments right now, in the production of them. And then also engaging in what the process is for theaters to also curate events to come out to and to be in space with. And so, you know, and also continue that pay what you can model. I think we have, I'm not shy to say that we have some, you know, pushback from theaters who are like, oh, you know, we can't do pay what you can, maybe you can't afford it for resources. And I'm like, well, you can't afford to cut out your community and it's only 10 tickets minimum.
Yeah.
Like, of your own
Are you
stuff.
at capacity every night?
That's what I'm like, and I think it's the
'Cause-
conversation. I think we're in a spearhead where a lot of theater across the country
Mhm.
is looking to be celebrated and centered, right? Now I'm from Baltimore, Maryland. I love my hometown, but Baltimore does not have as sustainable a theater scene as Philly does, right? There aren't many kind of like supported. You'll see mid-level theaters in Philly. In Baltimore, you don't see a lot of mid-level theaters, like the Exile or like, who are like, steadily, right? You may see small collectives and small theater companies doing things, but you have the big major ones, shout out to Center Stage and everybody, and so I understand from growing up the notion of core community theater. I also, in dealing with Philly theater, I think there is a fear that's going around the nation around how theater is represented. How much press can we get? How much eyes can we get on theater? And it's always a surprise to me to be like, hey, no matter how much press we get, which we've gotten so much press this year, especially with the addition to our fellowship and to me being at the helms this year and doing more community initiatives and things like that. We also have to have one conversation with theaters like, pay what you can is your way to access these new audiences.
Yeah.
Right? And to also build a collective of solidarity, an umbrella of solidarity with all these other theaters who are taking the same initiative you are at Philly Theater Week. Right? And so having those conversations, like not being afraid to organize the Zoom call, to go down the line and to answer any of these questions. They're not being afraid to also say that we're not going that direction or we're not doing that. I think here in Philadelphia, both with the Barrymore Awards this year and with Philly Theater Week, has really had to have the conversation with the Philly theater community about what it means to be of service and what it means to be for service. I find that it's more beneficial to be of service.
Yeah.
For here in Philadelphia to establish our own tone, our mission, and our own, not necessarily neutrality, but our own kind of worldview that we hold, an umbrella that we're holding up. And rather than saying, oh, I'm going to cover this part that's raining and this part that's raining, to say, okay, we're all in this umbrella. What does this umbrella look like? Some of you are going to don't really need to be under the umbrella, right? But there are other people who are looking or outside the umbrella are looking to come in from the rain, right? And how we draw those people. We're talking about accessibility. We're talking about more anti-race initiatives. We're talking about conversations being had about equity and about what that looks like. And so Theater Week puts a spotlight on what is happening in Philly theater. And I love that. I think the notion is, how do we sustain what is happening in Philly theater 365? How do we have how does Philly Theater Week, turn into this ultra celebration, the family reunion of sorts, but the family is still getting together for Sunday dinner. The family is still supporting each other throughout the year and in community. And it's hard because we are dealing with theater, trying to make sure that we are recovering. We're having the resources we need to do. We're mourning also theaters that have closed down. We're mourning not being able to do huge seasons like we've done in the past, or not being able to do these huge sets and holding space for that. And so what I see for Theater Week, it's opportunity also to get free promotion for your show, to get opportunity to, recording this podcast and listening now and talking to me and CJ is also additional free promotion, documentation, ethnography of that I was here, right? And we did this thing. And we're seeing a lot of theater companies who may have not gotten, that recognition and that spotlight, right? Being able to do that and be able to be like, I feel included. I feel to be a part. Now a part of the Philadelphia theater scene in a major way. Yeah.
That's great. I love the fact, unfortunately Theater Exile didn't have a show during Philly Theater Week.
Yeah.
Excuse me. But we did host we did host Crossroads Comedy Theater in our space, and they always have a great lineup of comedy offerings, and we love having them in our space. One thing we've really been doing this year is really reaching out to the community to let them know that this is also a space for them as well. And so we've had a lot more people renting our space, and we really appreciate having them in with us. And it's also been making us think differently about what else could we do to let the community know that we're here for them as well, and we're not just here talking about what we have on our stage. This is also the community stage. So come on. They say that to everyone.
That's how you survive.
Yeah.
Share resources. That's how we survive.
Absolutely. So in the lineup this year, for this Philly Theater Week, is it 31 total events, or are there more?
There is 31 total events, and there's I want to say 2 more that are, one is virtual, and another one is a PTC's duet that's happening in June.
Oh, okay.
But in advance, kind of pay what you can tickets.
Cool. Yeah, I like going through and seeing okay, this a part of this company's season has there's for the week we're gonna make this more accessible for everyone. Excuse me again. I have allergies, everyone. So
no,
it's been killing me. This is the time of year where if I'm sitting in a theater, I might be the one having the coughing fit.
Excuse me. I got to.
It's you need the lozenges and everything.
Just try to have a little open it down.
Yes. But I like seeing that, hey, this was part of our season, but for this week, we're going to make sure that more people can get to see this and experience it. But then you're seeing stuff like Musical Lab, who's been working on really bringing, musicals, original musicals to the stage and really engaging in that development and growth. So I love seeing that. And then, Plays and Players producing.
Yeah.
It's awesome always to see Plays and Players doing things, because they play host to so many different groups who don't have permanent homes, and so that's a great resource as well, and it's great to see them mounting and sharing. And then we have the regulars who always have something great to offer, like Wilma and Quintessence and Interact, for example. It's just I consider them mainstays. You always I wonder what Interact's doing right now.
Yeah.
It's good to see such a good variety too, because it doesn't look like it's all kind of the same. We're not seeing a continuous list of Shakespeare,
Yeah, that I think in the Philly Theater past, I think I was very overwhelmed. Was over 50 different shows. Everyone just might be I can't see all this.
Yes.
Or I can't read through this theory guide because it is show after show, and you're slowly through. And I was really, there's a nerve wracking because you want to keep building and building. I think when I thought about the 7th annual, and I think about this new trajectory of Via Philadelphia, I was there are a year that it's going to be different because we're aiming for different, or the community needs different, right? The community is looking for something different. When the community is just not there, because they're trying to recover, they're trying to get themselves together, and be able to kind of show up in their cool selves. When I think about a lot of the shows are happening, one of my favorites is Beacon Theater's A Shep Suit, which is about this kind of female pharaoh whose history has been forgotten. But what I love about Beacon Theater the most is that all of their shows are in 6 different locations. Right? But they're all libraries or community centers and accessible points in different parts all over Philly, South Philly, West Philly, Germantown, and they're all over. And that's the goal, is to bring the theater to the community, right? And so they're doing that work to make sure that people can access theater in these different multiple spaces. And I've loved, hearing about that and being a part of that. and seeing, a small theater collective, doing that work, right? And doing it very much wholeheartedly in navigation.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've said before, there's been so much transition where it felt like we had a lot more theaters once upon a time, but then so much had changed, and there were a lot of companies who were very much like, we're a fringe company. We produce a show for the fringe, then we kind of disappear until we have another show to offer. But all of those changes, like, I know those people are still out there. We just don't see them the way we've seen them before. And, it is this kind of trend where it does feel like it's kind of every person or every organization for themselves, even though we are very much in conversation with each other. And, but it's like, what do you think we need to, like, raise our visibility? What do you think is missing?
I think just I really think it's the conversation. I think it's, I think we don't know the difference. So we're doing a video tomorrow in honor of Poetry Month that centers around Audre Lorde's notion of the erotic and the creative fire. How erotic is that creative energy that you can't help but contain, right? Like to express, entertain your vessel, and to really like want other people to see. And so we chose different like poets around Philadelphia Scene to do. I'm even in the video doing some poetry. And it's called Creative Fire for Audre and Beyond. And in it, one of my favorite comedians who also performed at the kickoff event, Dr. Holly, was like, we have a whole quote where she talks about people understand they click or a community or what it means to be in a collective. And she goes into this to describe this like long conversation in the video where I'm like, yeah, because a click, right? We're in clicks. In fact, we did the same thing, but like, I'm not talking to you. I find things to do. I want to do my thing, you do your thing, you gotta. You have collectives that's like, hey, we'll do some work together, let's collaborate, but still, I want you to know that you're going to see all of my cards. Period. Like, you're not saying all of my cards. I'll give you what I can. Right? And then you have the community where when you're a community with another artist or collective of people, you put it all on the table. There's a trust in that if we're working together on this campaign or working together on this production, that I'm going to put all the resources I have out honestly to give, right? And still to tell you myself, the community wants you to sacrifice yourself. Community wants you to show up as your full self, right? I think sometimes because of the scarcity mindset that we have about it could be me next, it could be my theater company, it could be my people, there is that notion of I cannot, show up to my full self into this meeting or into this conversation because there's a risk that I'm posing. And while I understand that and I hold space for that, and don't get me wrong, I think this place being Philadelphia sometimes feels like people expect community out of us, but we don't receive necessarily community back in that same way and that support in that same way. Because it's like we're used to community people showing up from their full self. I was like, oh, you'll do it again and again and again. And then you see these theater companies go away because they had trusted community or they didn't. And so that's a really hard lesson to come across. It's a hard thing because we do live in a capitalist society as artists. And, capitalism doesn't really care about your art. It doesn't. Yeah. It cares that that the product of your art is sellable. Whereas when we believe in the art itself, right, it lives on. One of my favorite examples is Nina Simone's Miss City Goddamn. All of her, managers are like, wow, don't perform that song. Nina, don't do that. And one was like, but this is my art. What are you talking about? Right? This is what I have to say, this message. And you look at Billie Holiday, A Strange Fruit. To do that in that time.
Yeah.
To put your full self out there, to put your whole fears out there. It's risky. It's risky and it's hard. And I think we want to be seen, but we don't want to be seen. We want to be high.
Isn't that
We're doing
crazy?
this show.
You want to be seen, but you don't want to be seen.
No, yeah, don't say
It's like my art will speak for itself.
No, it's like when, I think any version that Philadelphia has faced in his last couple of 9 months in transition, there have been times where I'm grateful to have CJ and for CJ and me to have our separate communities that support us in the face of adversity and questions of where we're taking Philadelphia and what we're doing to corrupt it. But there's a notion that there's only 2 people full time. And a lot of you just have this. A lot of you just have only 4 or 5 people full time. And yeah. And so that's why I talk about race when theater companies are coming to like submit to us and you missing your graphic or you extended, you ain't tell us you extended, and there we hold grace for that.
Yeah.
Because we understand, because we are seeing all different types of theaters trying to navigate this, right? And I always say that we ask in return of Florida Dinkle for theaters who are like, take your time. Oh, I thought this mistake on the website. Fix this. And we're like, yeah. They're like, why? That's cool.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Take your time. You know what I'm saying? Or, oh, the variables are different this year. Cool. All right, Sabriaya. All right. Well, listen, I don't know what you're going to do to get it up. So, questions. But a lot of that comes from conversation.
Yeah.
And from, hey, Sabriaya, can you schedule a call? Can we talk? Can we touch base on something? And maybe one day, let's talk about it. Okay, cool. But that's not what it is at all.
Yeah.
And we're afraid to do that because there is that fear. Because you can't see them, only 3 of us working the wind.
On the strings,
You know what I'm saying?
The person's behind the curtain.
Yeah, it's like, no, you can't see the person. But if we saw the person behind the curtain and we support the people behind the curtain, this is where I talk about sustainability. You see these small theater companies who are still going, who are still, doing the work, right? Sometimes they highlight. When you think about it, we also have to start highlighting individuals within our community and within these theaters. Because a lot of us are working in multiple places and doing multiple things, intersecting in multiple ways. And it gets messy when you don't have that conversation to be like, I'm the director of Theater Philadelphia, but I'll still do this reading on Monday with Theater X. Or I would still be over here teaching at Yes Man Glad Art this summer. You might find me yada yada. And that's my business, but that's also you seeing what I'm bringing to the table. You see me as educated. You see me as this. I think that's hard for some generations to understand that that's how we're existing and that's how we want to exist. We want to know, who are you in this space? And I'm not talking about diabetes. It's some business you never know. You know what I'm saying? And there are some things that I will never know about some of my favorite artists.
Yeah.
But it does not. But what I do see, we're talking the difference between intimacy and community. I think a lot of times that's where we're falling short, is this notion of being transparent is not something that we do in theater, because to be transparent means that you are not prepared to do the performance. And I'm going to say, if you are in Robert's community, the times where I was not prepared, or the times where I was in the marriage stage, were the times that I gained even more communities who were like, oh, let me hang that curtain for you. Let me do the lights for you. Let me make sure the actors are ready for you. Let me do these things. And they jump in. Because transparently, you told me where you need help. if I don't know you need help, that's the conversation is dull, because now I'm thinking you're just lashing out because,
Yeah.
rather than, no, we've been hurt this season. Like this season, we had to go. We was dumpster diving for some extra stuff.
True.
You know what I'm saying? I would love to hear those stories, because that to me is real.
I do think a lot of people are holding on to something that worked before, and it's not working now, so they're looking for someone to blame instead of saying like, okay, we have to move past this. This doesn't work anymore. And yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, it's hard to have those conversations, but I also think that that's the benefit of having fresh eyes. When you have new people join your team, they see things that you haven't seen. Like it appears that we're operating in a vacuum, in kind of sense where we're not really branching out and exploring the world, but we are, and sometimes we have to make that known. Like I always say, at Exile, I'll say, Deb, you should post on social media that you're out seeing a show in New York. I was like, because otherwise they think you're just sitting here deciding what shows to do, but you actually get out into the world and you engage in that conversation. So let them know.
Let them know.
Yeah.
They knew. Y'all knew from the jump.
Yeah.
Where Sabriaya was coming from. You knew. Oh, this is a chick from the community. This Sabria's bringing 109 kids everywhere she goes. Or, this is happening. Yeah. But also I think it's hard, because I think when you do show those parts of yourselves, and this is why I say that being uncomfortable, in that, you have to be able to understand there are going to be adversity. There is going to be, and what I'm learning, as I'm saying this, is that there also there's a definitely a possibility and no negotiating where you're safe. I tell my kids all the time, I'm like, is it that you're not safe, or are you uncomfortable in this conversation? Sometimes you're not safe, and you have to be like, and that's where I draw the line, because this is not safe for you to know this information about me. Yeah. Right? But there's also where, this is uncomfortable for you to know that I like to do this weird thing, right? I like to be around this. It's uncomfortable because we also live in a very beautiful yet dangerously curious world. And theater is no exception. Yeah. Let me tell you, Philly theater will eat you out. You ain't doing what you gotta do. They will eat you up. But the thing about it is that in theater also, when you own up, when you say what you gotta say, and you stand when you gotta stand, Philly theater will be like, all right, I'm standing it. I'm gonna let you do it. I'm gonna let you go. They're like, no.
Philly theater needs a we need a title like Philadelphia sports fans have, we need like a Broad Street Brawlers, but for the theater community.
Listen, we need to start that, because that's what it is, for real. I think I really would interact here on the kickball tournament. I was like, yo, we need to have more like tournaments against each other, like healthy competition, where we showing up like, all right, put your best monologue on the floor. You know
oh, that would be awesome to do like a community-wide monologue slam.
Look what you got. Like, what you doing? We used to in college all the time. Yeah, Temple and be like, all right, what's monologue you got next?
I would say I started Rep Radio because I went to a monologue slam at Fergie's by a group called they were called Hat G, and it stands for Hovering Above the Gutter Theater Company, and the host was Chris Morse, and so he hosted it, and I talked to him about this podcast, and he said, you should totally do that. And then several months later, he was like, you should get on that. And then so he became my first host, and that's how it started, with the monologue slam.
Listen, because if you're just about monologue slam, that's a hard slam survive. I think it's
Yes.
a poetry slams. I'm like,
But they're a lot of
cool.
fun, though. Bring your
Yeah.
best monologue. Then we're going to do a cold monologue. We're going to have a theme monologue. And then the audience picks the winner.
That's what we gotta. The thing about me is this: I love moments like that because it's really in the community building that makes the bigger things easier, right? So if we doing these monologues and we doing kickball and yada yada, when I need to call you and say, hey, what was like when we do this? What you got? Yada yada yada. It becomes easier. Let me tap into my resource. Okay, I can't tap into that because that's that text us yada yada yada. But the conversation is transparent. It's like, hey, oh yes, let's have that call. That's how it is. But community will always respect your boundary to not self-sacrifice. Right? Your community should always be. I have community now who even though they are celebrating me as director at FPA Philadelphia and loving what I'm bringing to the table, they will remind me in a heartbeat. You get off at 5. Don't bring to Philadelphia to this space or to this vacation or to this trip or whatever, because Sabriaya in itself outside of Philadelphia is a member of community, right? And we want to take care of you. And I've had to harshly because after it's like study. The first year as a director, I'm gonna say the first 3 years, it's studying. It's like I'm in school. What you mean? I'm trying to figure out what's happening in this ecosystem. Yeah. And then you have your friends who are like, come here, close the book. the C's, the degrees. Whatever. Because it's important because especially as a Black body, a Black femme body, my self-sacrifice, especially in theater, and to be honest with you, in theater and in a lot of art industries, a lot of leadership positions, it is up for my burnout. And no one will be there to pick up the pieces but the community that has stuck with me throughout everything. But it shouldn't be like that. We shouldn't be passing on burnout.
Absolutely. Some knowledge you dropped there. That's I hope we were listening.
I got listening.
Yes. So Philly Theater Week it's on till April 14th. And not to rush it off the stage, but what's next for Theater Philadelphia?
Well, what I'm excited about when next with Theater Philadelphia is this notion of how do we continue to be an archive for all of these theaters and this work. We spent this past year, even though we're not in transition, has been filled with a lot of ethnography, a lot of stories. We have a lot of photos and videos and sounds and interviews that with our fellows we're looking forward to kind of compiling into a wonderful kind of Theater Philadelphia magazine. So you can see, hey, this year, this is what the very much look like this year. This is what, this is the class roster of fellows. This is the cohort of youth who went to see Fat Ham, who went to see Once on This Island. This is what happened. This is how we came about, and how we made it out. This is how Sabria's first year went. You know what I'm saying? These are the observations we made. These are the anti-racist action committee observations on how you're represented on stage across the board. So those are things that's one of the things that I'm really excited about, because I know a lot of nonprofits are in the year campaign, but for me it's about what is the end of the year and fiscal year and the season celebration. What does that look like, right? And that's something that I'm excited about, because I'm always excited for reflection. I'm always excited I have never, what did I say? Maybe to talking about it. I will take a critique in a minute. Give me a critique. Tell me what was wrong.
Yeah. How can I be better?
How can I be better? Not even how can I be better, because I'm always like, no one's ever going to be better. We're going to be who we are at that point.
How can we grow?
How can we grow in that way, And sometimes I think looking back and being able to sit down and reflect is really important. I think also being able to understand contribution. And that's the next thing is like doing, we're looking for new board members. We're looking for new voters next season and things like that. We're looking at what the Barrymores are going to look like in a couple of months. You know, I have more time now. But, you know, we'll just pop up. Everybody's like, hey, knock, knock.
If you have ideas, you can send emails now.
You can send emails. What I say is also this notion of like, as we move forward, wanting Theater Philadelphia to be exactly of service.
Yeah.
But that, you know, but to make it plain that we are not on your timeline.
Yeah.
We are on the universal timeline of how we can best support Philly theater, right? And that comes with patience, that comes with grace, and that also comes with the understanding that we too have a mission statement.
Yeah.
That we too have things to maintain and to operationally do. And so I think that's something that we're really excited about being able to kind of apply out more as we go into our sophomore year of CJ being a full-time director of operations and programming, and myself being a director, and extending our, fellowship to the Barrymores, and our fellows are excited about things like that. They're like, oh, we listen. They're having a ball.
Great.
Being part of the big.
So how can our listeners get in community with Theater Philadelphia?
I would say make sure that, one, you follow us on Instagram or Facebook if you want to see behind the scenes foolishness, or if you want to keep up with what's the Barrymore recommended shows, what's happening. We post a lot of like random community things, that we come across as well. If you're looking for ways to promote your shows or your talks or your discussions, we want a smooth $125 package, like list of our things, and we do more to support and to work. With the theaters we work with, we get a lot of good feedback about how responsive we are to kind of posting and to doing dedicated newsletters and all these different things. And beyond that, we have this What's on the Stage newsletter. Subscribe to our newsletter on our website, theaterphiladelphia.org.
Yeah.
Newsletter comes out every Thursday. I know because I type it and organize it.
Do you know how many people you're reaching right now?
Right now, in our contacts, we have 22.4 thousand people subscribe to our newsletter.
Good.
And they get disappointed if I don't send it right. That counts every week.
That's great that they wait for it.
They did. Yeah. So we've grown in our Instagram reach as well, and our Facebook reach. I think what we aim to do is continue to be a service organization that can, be the storytelling vessel for multiple, areas and spaces in the greater Philadelphia area.
Mm-hmm. I will tell you, it's just a funny moment because, we know when the announcement for a Barrymore recommendation comes out, and sometimes we're waiting to figure out what conversation we're about to have. And so it's like we have like an e-blast to the ready. We got like social posts to the ready to figure it out. And so we're just waiting for that notice. There was one time we were waiting because we had lined up some print ad at the same time, and I was like, "Oh no!" I said this graphic, and I just don't know what's gonna happen. And then it came out. It was like, "Yes, go!"
This is even me like, they go give us some minutes to post ourselves. No, we love it.
We waste no time.
No, everything is like that. I'm like, yeah,
that's how valuable it is. See, that's something you should point out. Do something on your socials about like as soon as that email goes out and it's like bing 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 bing.
That's all we get. We get that, and then we're like, yo. And for us, it's valuable to us to do it. We just want to make sure that in the future we are being celebrated. We want to be on your team. We want to support what you're doing. We want to have the conversations, and we want it to move smoothly. Like, we want you to be very recommended.
Yeah.
We want to. we also want you to, what that support looks like for us to give, but also what does it mean for y'all to support us too?
Yeah.
Like, we got you. I feel like we got you.
Absolutely.
And, there's theater companies like Theater Exile, and, even small theater companies that, like, consistently advertise with us, consistently be like, hey, can I get a very kid newsletter? Can I get this? And also are down for me to be like, can I come to film a crazy reel at the theater? I didn't know the theater. They were doing when the shoot comes out, I was like, I'm a pop guy.
Yeah.
And I'm finna do 2 reels. I'm cool with that.
You should do a theater tour. That would be fun. That's a good summer project.
You're not ready for my theater tour. No, if I'm gonna do it, I'm gonna give you credit.
I've been saying it's a great time to be in exile, so we'd love to have you there.
Listen, I just hope theaters are ready for my crazy ideas. Yes. Like, what the real is gonna be, they're gonna be like, yo, Sabriaya, you cannot come up here doing that. I'm like, what you mean? I'm sorry today. I'm gonna say summer plan.
There you go.
Where's Sabriaya now?
Nice. So if you could ask the community a favor.
If I could ask the community a favor, I would say to recognize that we are planted, not potted.
Mm.
When I think about the plant and not potted, I think about the fact that when things are planted, there's roots. It's hard to pull up. When we pot our plants, as most of us people we're still living, knock them over. They dry up there in this spot, and it's hard to kind of, sometimes predict why that plant did that or how this plant is growing exponentially this long, And it's something about when we're planted. And when I say that, I mean in metaphorically, I mean that do me a favor and become a community with us. Plant with Theater Philadelphia. Because the more that we plant, there will be no doubts of where the roots are growing. And the thing about when you plant, you're able to make even more of that garden church. And so that's my hope for Theater Philadelphia. Whether it's me at the helm or anyone seems to come after me, is that there's a planting farm that has been started. And I think at Theater Philadelphia's history, there have been times when we've been very potted.
Yes.
But we want to be planted. Because we understand, even if the telling us a story, those roots don't go there.
Yes.
Yeah.
I want that on a t-shirt. Theater Philadelphia. Planted, not potted.
Listen, it's gonna be a TED Talk.
Well, I had a great time chatting with you, and I know there's so much more that we could talk about, and I know that is a good time to end because there will be future conversations. Yeah. But Sabriaya, I want to thank you for taking the time to chat with me and to talk about Philly Theater Week. Everyone, Philly Theater Week is still going on, so if you're listening to this, hopefully on Wednesday, you will still have time to experience the rest of Philly Theater Week. And then also just visit theaterphiladelphia.org and find out what the rest of the community is doing. There's always so much action going on. There's so much excitement. And even though you've heard that we are like bouncing back and struggling, and just trying to get back to where we were before, we are a resilient community. And there is so much going on. And we are, I don't know if it's a plus or a minus, but we're really good at making it look like there is no problem. Because it doesn't stop. It doesn't stop the creativity, the dynamic experiences that you have when you go into any of the theaters in the greater Philadelphia area. So don't sleep on Philly Theater, and we'll be here for you. So yeah, Sabriaya, thank you so much for taking the time to chat. It was truly a pleasure. And I look forward to future conversations with you as more from Theater Philadelphia comes into light.
Yes, and thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you to our guest, Sabriaya Shipley, Executive Director of Theater Philadelphia, for joining us on today's podcast to talk about Philly Theater Week. The Broad Street Review podcast is an Emory production. If you would like to be a guest on the podcast, visit us online at em3ry.com. Get involved with Broad Street Review. Head on over to our website at broadstreetreview.com and click Get Involved at the top. While you're there, help keep us running and click Donate to find out how. There you can also find our social media links. Thank you for your part in keeping the conversation going.